My name is Borsai. I'm a partner in Wavemaker Genesis and started my career in the music business a long time ago by working at different concert companies, working at MCA Universal. I manage an artist named Jason Mraz. I currently manage an artist named Winona Judd, and that has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. In 2013, I became an advisor to Ripple. I have a really schizophrenic career, actually. I additionally did the Ethereum pre-sale in 2014, and now kind of focused my efforts working with the Wavemaker Genesis guys. We have a really great panel, so what I'm going to do is let each of the panelists introduce themselves right now because it's a super diverse panel, and everyone does something a little bit different in entertainment. So why don't we start with you?
My name is Frank Banks. I'm the founder and CEO of Zen. We're building a decentralized platform, surprise, for emerging pop culture video editors, Generation Z, making them stakeholders by allowing them to earn our ZenCoin cryptocurrency.
Hi everyone, I'm Ann Greenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of Entertainment AI, which is a decentralized smart content marketplace. And I like to say that blockchain is evolutionary, not revolutionary, because the antecedents of this are really, really interesting to take a look at, especially outside of fintech. So I founded a company called Gracenote in the late 90s, based on some IP we had developed earlier in the 90s. And it was really a very early example of what you can do with a decentralized approach. I was the first crowdsourced company. I'm really pleased to be here.
Hey guys, I'm Andrew. I'm a venture partner at Science Inc. We did a security token back in August. I'm also an advisor and mentor at Stanford University StartX Incubator. So I work with a bunch of ICOs. The entertainment ones that I'm focusing on now is one in particular called Kind Heaven, which is an immersive entertainment facility across from Caesars in Vegas, and I'm looking forward to talking about that.
My name is Matt Sorum. I'm a musician. I was in bands Guns N' Roses, The Cult, and Grammy Award-winning band Velvet Revolver. And been in the tech space for about the last 4 years. I'm involved with a company called Artbit. My title is Head of Communications, so I'm here to communicate with you today. And Artbit is a platform built on Hedera Hashgraph, and the space will be for artists, brands, and the community to all share the space and be able to monetize with cryptocurrency. So I'm here to talk about that today, and thanks for having me.
Hi, my name is Lauren Selig. I'm an investor and advisor to a number of different cryptocurrency companies, but I'm a producer at heart of movies. So I thought I would merge the two things that I love to do, and I'm working with a company called MovieCoin to help make the movie industry more accessible and transparent.
Okay, so in the spirit of merging, I've been fortunate enough to be on a panel with a few of these people. So I'm going to kind of start with this general concept of businesses merging and really thinking about how legacy businesses exist and the kind of advent of new technologies and how those concepts can exist moving forward. I want to start with you, Matt, because you talk a lot about the legacy business versus blockchain, and how do you see that working out in the future?
Well, the interesting thing about the blockchain and the data is how artists can get paid. And as we know, I still receive my checks biannually, right? So I have to wait for the administrative factors of all the payments that go through the chain of command. The publisher, the label, and someone's making interest on my money in a bank account somewhere, right? So the idea of the blockchain, especially in the publishing realm, and everyone getting paid instantly, fascinates me. And I think that it will come with emerging artists. Like the legacy artists are there, right? And I think publishing houses have a job that they don't want to give up. But I have heard and know that they are looking at these blockchain elements to be able to expedite a lot of the expenditures, right? So I really like that. And for emerging artists, that's where Artbit comes in. And for instance, Little Hank Williams, the yodeler. Now, the new model of record business is grab onto a moving train. So they found this kid on YouTube, and they signed him. But he had already built his community. He didn't need them, really. So if he had another platform to be able to monetize himself instantly, he could have done that. But through the YouTube platform, somebody else is making all the money. And with the ads and the brands that are affiliated with YouTube, they've already paid them once, and now they're going to pay them twice. If you don't want to watch Little Hank Williams commercial that's across YouTube, you can click off right away. And if you're not a sponsored artist, nobody gets paid. The brands don't get what they need, and the artist doesn't get paid. So that's where Artbit comes in. And the way that will work will be the augmented reality branding, product placement, if you will, all built on smart contracts, and everyone getting paid through cryptocurrency.
Okay, so that's a natural use case. You know, the blockchain, you know, helping alleviate costs through payments, but also kind of really offering transparency. So is transparency a good thing, and is that something that's going to be accepted in existing businesses today, where content creators, you know, are not always the most forthcoming with payments? And anyone can answer this.
You got to remember that the record companies were offered when music was digitized. They were offered that streaming aspect of music, right? With the original, the original digital version of that. It ended up being Apple and iTunes and everything, and they naysayed it. So it's the same thing that's happening now. I really feel this is no different than digitized music, and it will come. It just will take time, and artists have to be the ones that speak out on what they really want. But I feel that the old guard is always going to be there, and they're going to try to keep that command. But much like, you know, everything that's happened with Airbnb and Uber and all the other direct source stuff, music is no different. We just need to build the new community and the emerging new young artists, because, as we know, older artists will be in the catalog, but they're going, you know, to get older and older and older. So we can build the new world.
Yeah, I mean, payments are part of it. I just think it's sort of like what Matt was saying. It's really about now who gets to participate in the fundamental aspects of the business model, where, you know, the music and the way the music industry was structured beforehand, it was basically like this input that the record companies tried to get cheaply as possible. So now you just have a different way that you can organize things where the people who are actually creating the value can participate in that to a greater degree, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, it's really about using that technology to enable that, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, and I think influencers even have a problem with monetizing their following today, because if you ask anyone like Jake Paul or whoever, most of their revenue is coming from merchandise, which is a sign that YouTube and other content channels aren't giving them the benefit of higher revenue off of view count or driving their community to YouTube, which is a third-party platform. So to side with Matt, it'd be better if they could monetize their content via the blockchain and not have to deal with that content provider that's taking a massive cut. And then they wouldn't be depending on selling merchandise, which changes content, which changes what kids are watching, and kind of leads influencers down the road of creating content driven by clickbait as opposed to content that could actually be watchable.
There are significant pain points for influencers and artists. There's also the same kind of pain points for investors, and that certainly exists in the movie business, where I think the first movie I became involved in 2013, by 2014 I still had no idea where my money went. There were these, you know, CAM account agreements that I had to basically beg the studio to have access to see where the dollars went and the water flow, and there was zero transparency as to how, when, or if I was going to actually see any of my investment back. And it was kind of an embarrassing situation that you would have thought after many, many years of movie making would have, you know, someone would have solved it. But they haven't. And then there's the whole issue of a lot of people would love to be able to invest in a movie, but they have no idea how to have access to a director or an artist or a script. So this sort of opens up those pain point doors and allows all of those issues to be solved in a very different way, which, the goal is to have that help both investors on the, accessibility and transparency side and liquidity side, and also same thing with the artists. So we're all looking at the same waterfall. We're all looking at the same information. There's no hidden features involved in what we're trying to do, and hopefully that will become the norm. That'd be the goal.
So I want to pick up on what you're all saying, actually, which is we have a continuum from legacy artists to emerging artists and the people we used to call our audience, who are the influencers. And I really stand with the audience and say and I may piss off some people on the panel, but I say the audience is the artist. And that what we're really seeing right now is this massive shift in what can be created. I don't want to just get what we created over the last 100 years of recorded media onto a blockchain, and even if that's the first wave. But I'm really, really interested in seeing what new kinds of meanings and experiences can be created in ways never imagined before. I think Frank, you're starting to, get in there with this having a flattened marketplace where people are participating, and that's really where I'm focused right now with Entertainment AI, which is to do a flattened marketplace for the automated content, automated smart content creation. And what we're doing is, and I started working on this before blockchain, before Satoshi published his white paper, but was trying to work on the next level of entertainment data granularity. Gracenote is the largest entertainment data company in the world, so after I left, I started working on sort of the next level to virtualize production. And so what I came up with was micro metadata. Micro metadata will allow us to go beyond information about information to information about who, what, when, where, and how. So we could completely virtualize it. And because it's an exponential media machine outputting exponential media, I had a problem. I thought, no one's going to fund me. This is before we had elastic storage. Because we would be outputting so much media that it would cost more to store it than we could make in the company. So I described it working with a decentralized system. That's why I was really, really early. But described the system to someone about 6 years ago, and they said, "Have you heard of blockchain?" And I said, "No." But yeah.
Anne has an incredible story, and she will share it with everyone after. It's very long, but it's very interesting. And I say that with love,
Well,
Anne. I
know,
want you to
but I think it's
spend time.
important to think about the
Right.
meaning of what we're doing, what this stuff represents.
No, I mean, that wasn't meant to be insulting. Okay, so, kind of along those same lines, one of the things that fascinates me is kind of to Anne's point, Anne has been building kind of this disruptive technology, and that was really the spirit of it, and that's where the early kind of investments went. Now what we're seeing is more established companies creating a pivot, and they're the ones getting funded. There's underlying businesses, there's a whole bunch of different kind of financial models connected to it. I would say, Lauren, with what you're involved in, that's a disruptive mechanism, but just to pick on Kind Heaven for a minute, Kind Heaven went out and raised money and could raise money, and you're going to be doing an ICO. Is the ICO necessary, in addition to the fact that you've already raised a significant amount of money for this incredible project?
Yeah, so Kind Heaven is an immersive entertainment center in Las Vegas. It's across the street from Caesars. And when you walk into Kind Heaven, you're transported into Southeast Asia. There's several different bars and areas to eat food. You can discover new artists. And the reason that Kind Heaven is perfect for an ICO is, number one, we're building an amazing community where you can use different tokens to process transactions. There's not many people building tangible physical properties to actually use the blockchain in person via a band. So you come in, you do a purchase, it's seamless, and you're walking through. The community aspect is going to be huge about that. The secondary aspect is kind of what Matt was talking about, which was every single artist inside of Kind Heaven, the token holder can benefit from their revenue via royalties. So instead of an artist kind of not being able to monetize their community, they now can directly monetize their community, and their community now can become their investor in their career. So for those two reasons, Kind Heaven was a perfect project for me, yeah.
Frank, kind of the same question. The projects you're involved in, does it need that blockchain component, or can it stand as a business on its own?
I mean, it could stand on the business as its own, but really what we're talking about is, so he brought up a point about, you know, YouTubers having to monetize by merchandising. Well, the fact is that they still wouldn't have an audience without YouTube. You know, YouTube is a distribution platform that's been able to transform who can get in front of an audience and how you can build an audience. The problem is that they're not in complete alignment with the creators themselves. So the best model for that kind of thing, in my estimation, in my opinion, is where you basically the creators themselves have a stake in the network. So this absolutely, you know, I started this business before I knew how blockchain could fit into the picture. But at the very core of it was always this idea that the purpose of this business is to help these kind of creators monetize. So then how do you reverse engineer the best business for them, right? And then when you do that, you understand, okay, well, they're already monetizing through informal marketplaces. Marketplaces are very powerful. We talked about Uber. We talked about Airbnb. These marketplace models are very, very powerful. So then then blockchain is basically the most powerful marketplace model you could possibly have. So you can have a dynamic, infinitely scalable amount of people who can contribute and derive value, monetary value, financial value directly from the network business. So for us, it just makes perfect sense. To me, this is the perfect business for the application of blockchain technology.
Don't be shy, Ann. I won't stop
I
you.
totally agree with that, absolutely. And now you're getting at purpose, right? And what's so interesting there is that well, not only do we get a trustless environment, and that's your word of big governments, but I won't go there right now. An environment where we don't have to have middle men. You actually have this moment where there are no gateways either, and that's all coming down. So who is the artist, and the tools that you're creating for an artist versus an audience, those are really merging, and they could be just equal, and then it's just who's the best person performing.
The one thing that I think will be the biggest asset within the blockchain is the community. The fans don't get enough monetization for all the content they provide to all these platforms that are huge. Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. You put up your content's now building their wealth. So within the crypto world, within Artbit, the idea is anybody that puts up contents connected with an Artbit performer is going to be able to monetize crypto and own their percentage of that community, if you will. So they'll be able to monetize through their content providing and linking with said artist, right? And the branding through smart contracts, that can all be done with the data. And the other thing that's really interesting to me is what brands you want to affiliate with. On YouTube, you have no control of that. If you're a vegan, you still get a McDonald's commercial. If you don't eat meat, if you don't do certain kinds of things, within the smart contract, you can let the node, or if the community and the data know exactly what you're involved in and what you like and what you don't like, and that data can automatically transfer. So that said brand, for instance, could have an augmented reality piece of your product placement, if you will, and because the data is so thick, that through Hashgraph, which is such a fast, expedient way, there's a reason we chose them, be able to have those transactions 200,000 times faster. So we're able to have, all that data and all that crypto move quickly. So that's the thing that excites me about the community. We forget about the fans. We're always looking at the artists. And then there's very few people that can get recognized through what's out there now. Like I said, little Hank Williams. And what happened with him? Now he got picked up by a major label. He got signed to Atlantic Records. And he has the #1 single at country music today. Why? Because he had the content that got recognized. Now, the same thing can happen within the Artbit space. If you're creating that artist said with the community and the fans, you can actually invest in that artist with your tokens. Instead of equity, the artist feels better about it. And if there's a music share or a music sale or a license or even taken off the platform and you decide to go to the old school way of doing things, there's a payout. So that's really what I'm excited about and the way that will work and how transparent that is. Because in the music business, my thing has always been about lawyers and audits and going after everybody to find out what happened to all the money.
Forensic accountants.
The producer gets this and this guy gets that. Now, within the blockchain, that could all be written in. And that's what I love about it.
So speaking about payouts, this is going to be one of the last questions I want to open up to the audience, so you guys have some time to ask some questions. We hear a lot about security tokens and fans and consumers being able to participate in the success of an artist's career. What safeguards are in place when you guys kind of move forward with these agendas? Lauren, you can probably answer this because you're doing film financing.
So in the film financing space, sort of your community becomes the most important part about what you're building. They're sort of your advanced team to making sure that the content that you create becomes watchable, usable, shareable, and exciting. The solutions and the technology behind it, we build in sort of safety mechanisms within that make it so that the creation of what we're doing is as accessible, and the data is important, so that then you use that data, like what you were saying, to build a bigger community, to find out exactly who's excited about a book or a script or a movie or an artist, and that whole loop just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The pain point of the process is going to be when studios realize that the data that we're having now as producers or as artists is now very, very visible. And I think a lot of them might not want that because they're going to know that possibly behind the scenes there's a lot of stuff and a lot of fat that's hidden into budgets. And that's unfortunate because that truth has to come out. And eventually your community, your artists, we're all going to band together, and it's going to be it will be a tidal wave that will create creativity and community in a way that we haven't seen before. And the legal regulations behind that will start to form around that groundswell. And that's what we're trying to do as producers or as artists or as technology developers. All of those things need to sit in the back of our minds as we are pushing forward the agendas of the companies that we're creating and the way that we want to put ourselves out there in the world.
All right, should we open up to some questions? Does someone have a mic? Go ahead.
First off, I got to say to Anne, I think Gray's Note's an awesome product. I don't know if I can get any of my projects off the ground without Studio System. But my question is,
Speaking of confidential data.
my question is, like Matt said, the music industry in the 90s, they were offered streaming and digital rights management, and they saw it as a sword to their throat, not a shield, because they were on the cash cow, the CD. What can we do to get movie studios to realize that the blockchain is a potential shield? I mean, what impetus do the studios have to accept this? Because it seems like right now they would want to fight it because there is a lot of fat, as Lauren said.
Well,
Well, I
they're
think
protecting their base,
you
first
got-
of all,
yeah.
as long as they can. I'll just say one thing in terms of the movie studios, and I came from the film industry, although not more recently. They have a problem because they don't touch their audience, every week or on a binge view, every hour or on a mobile device every few minutes. They have to wait for tentpole releases to really interact with their audiences, and they have all this incredible data. And when you're with Gray's Note was just handling billions of requests for data a day, how do you put that data to work now in order to facilitate all of this great predictive analytics? And more importantly, how do you take that content format and turn it into something that's relevant to millennials and Gen Z? I mean, it's got to change. We're moving beyond consumption to co-creation, in my opinion, and we need a model that replaces advertising and fast.
I think though that studios will begin to become our friends in the sense that there are so many movies that when they come out, there's a tracking system before the movie is released, and you're looking at the numbers and you're thinking, this is going to be my opening weekend, and I'm relying on your numbers to show me where I need to be marketing and how I need to be marketing, and the system is flawed. Some of the movies that I've been involved in, specifically military movies, you can't track that community. They're a force that is beyond anything I've ever seen. So when you make a military movie, your numbers and tracking ahead of time make no sense compared to what you're actually getting on the other side, in a positive way for us. And it's similar in other areas where you're tracking to do really well, and then opening weekend happens and you go, this isn't anything like what I thought it was going to be. And the technology behind what we're going to be doing is going to shift that. So studios should become our allies, not our enemies in this. And that will happen as we prove out that model, and it will take, movie by movie, company by company, to show that this is going to work in a way that they should get on board now.
You got to remember, it hasn't been long since, traditional music labels, record labels, got into the live performance and merchandise business. I signed a deal with RCA Records and Clive Davis in 2005, and it might have been one of the last deals that didn't want my merchandise and my touring revenue. So they're already struggling, and obviously the majors had to get in the business of touring, which meant they couldn't monetize their company without taking. So a young artist would get offered a deal. The last deal I saw for a band I was producing from Interscope Records was $50,000 and half of everything. And I called my lawyer and I said, there's definitely a few zeros missing, right? And that was not the case. And that's the reality. When music artists, even new artists, got signed for, between $250,000 and $1 million, depending on, the level of hype that was around that particular artist. So as you see, they're already holding on for dear life, playing in the market of trying to take your T-shirts and your touring revenue. Hence, ticket sales and live performance being 3 to 4 to 5 times more than they were when back in the not long ago, 15 years ago, ticket prices have gone up astronomically. So now, if you look at that particular situation, what you talked about with digitized music, when Napster was there and was able to offer that platform to the labels, and they just said, oh, no, that'll go away. I feel the same way about the blockchain and the data that's offered here. If they don't jump on board, and then, like I say, the emerging artists, we find the next little Hank Williams, and he decides to come to Artbit, and then next thing you know, we're the biggest thing that's out there. Or, all the different platforms that come, and then the next, right? So within that data, they got to look at this information. The problem is people are going to lose jobs, and because there's a new model coming, right? And
A lot more people
but
would
life
actually have
changes,
access.
and that's just the way things go. How long will it take? That needs to be spoken about from the artists and the community, and that they want this, right? And I think it will take time to get the people that are up in what I call at UCLA the ivory tower to be able to accept the fact that their job description is going to change because of blockchain and that data.
And as just generally as someone who's in venture capital, the way we currently invest in equity projects, we're kind of stuck with teams for 5 to 7 years. The actual financing of startups in general, and the answer to why am I doing an ICO is shifting because investors want liquidity. So sometimes the answer is in who's giving you the money. It's not, why is your product on the blockchain? You can always pivot and create an integration, but the money is being deployed towards that exit. So.
Basically, my question is this: in the entertainment industry, most customers they don't know anything about blockchain technology, and so what is your strategy, and how are you using your products to introduce so many people
Can
Pay them.
Airdrop.
I'm going to give an example. I run a company where we actually give people crypto when they invite their friends to buy tickets. So basically, it's kind of a reward system where people earn something before getting to interact with crypto. So how are you guys like using something like that or a different model to get people involved in crypto?
I want to tackle that because this is something that I'm very passionate about, and people out there might disagree with me, but depending on the crowd, I really think that services like ours that are consumer-facing are what's going to drive, ultimately, the adoption of blockchain technologies. And what I mean by that is, so we're obviously dealing with video content at the top of where people come into our business ecosystem. But then the underlying marketplace, and then we can build on these decentralized protocols and technology services. They don't need to actually know anything about that. What they need to understand is the benefit to them from participating or using our product or any services in our, in our ecosystem. So the answer is just to deliver value that people want, but use this new technology, right? But you have to do that in a way, so first of all, you got to get something that people want. And then you can work from there. So I think what you're doing is really smart, but consumer-facing applications, and I'm going to say this again, for all these people out here who think fat protocols and all that stuff, I disagree strongly. Our thesis is that consumer products, just like they did in the dot-com era, are what are going to drive the adoption of these underlying technologies.
I totally agree. And maybe some of you guys saw Fred Krueger's pitch on WorkCoin. And are you guys familiar with WorkCoin? We're in a situation right now where people are very motivated to make a living wage. And going back to Napster, when they came to visit me when they started, I said, some people, I love to pay for some music and some you have to pay me to listen to, right? And that was back in the 90s, and I said, give me a database that has dynamic pricing, that the artist gets to set their own price, and they get to change it as well. And it took Steve Jobs coming along a couple years later to be able to get a uniform pricing of 99 cents per song, and that was just strong-arming, basically, and negotiation, but it didn't really take the data where, the technology where it could go. Napster was amplifying things. That was the first web. Now we have a transactional web where we can actually complete a sale. Now, the hard part there is everything's trackable. So, if you're going to get in here and start participating, you have to be thinking about if you're protecting users' privacy, your fan privacy, and giving them those options as well. I mean, we knew that back in the 90s. I encrypted Grace Notes in database because of it.
Yeah, I think consumer decentralized apps are on the way. I think it just takes kind of the platform technology to advance a little bit and clever user interface, right? The Waves platform is doing amazing things with integrating exchanges within games. So for example, if you're on Candy Crush and you win X amount of games and then you're X ranking and then you can exchange that token for another game, that's essentially a consumer-facing decentralized app, right? I'm working with a company that does instant video editing, photo editing, kind of that Hollywood edit. Something like that will change the game for consumer-facing decentralized apps.
And also for the developers out there, there are things you can do now, of course, that aren't going to be mucked up by the fact that blockchain is slow right now and not a lot of really great tools on top of it yet. But there are applications out there like CryptoBots or something, which has tremendous gameplay and is really not that complicated graphics or delivery, but allows users to get in there. And the gameplay, they're making money. They're buying in with ETH, and if they're good at it, like some people probably in the audience, they're making some good money at it.
But for sure, it takes the big platforms to get on board. Apple takes 30% of every purchase within an app. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough margin to deal with if you're a game developer or a user.
Questions?
And you mentioned new kinds of experiences that are native to this world, and you maybe touched on it a little. I'd love to hear from anybody on the panel about some of the things that really might be a new experience that we don't already have.
On the blockchain? I think Kind Heaven is one. I mean, we're building a massive physical place where you can interact with the blockchain live, and you can basically you walk in and you get a band and you can pay for things, ease of use. You can send it home instantly and interacts with a iOS app. That kind of smoothness between different technologies and platforms is my favorite part of blockchain right now, because people can actually use it, and then once it has that tangible value, people will start to take it more seriously, especially the big institutions, banks, hedge funds, etc.
I tend to think it's going to move toward dynamic content. So, I mean, that's where I'm focused, and I just think deeply participatory is what guides me. You know, I think what you're going to see are what we're already seeing in the sort of edge experimental things are places where users are able to go inside the content that they previously liked to consume. Now they're co-creating it, they're starring in it, their friends are starring in it. These things are totally plastic, and you can do these things with robots or avatars or other humans. And those things you can't really tell the difference anymore in really, really well-designed environments.
It's not necessarily entertainment related, but I'm really kind of enthusiastic about social good initiatives, mesh networks where people have no internet, you know, unbanked initiatives. You know, Good Money is an incredible company, and you know, money can be used for good or bad. So any of those kind of projects are really exciting to me. Anyone else?
Okay, so
Yeah, my
I'll just
ears,
start over.
you know, the rock and roll, you know, I was straining a little bit there.
Me too, brother, me too. So I've been a professional touring musician for about 10 years. I've been in a band, toured all around the country. I have music published on Spotify, through TuneCore, YouTube, you know, all the traditional, the newer ways, I guess. Now, how do we, if we were to go to Artbit and just monetize some music through you guys, would we be walking away from TuneCore and Spotify? And would it be an exclusive thing, or would they run simultaneously?
No, but how's that working out for you over at Spotify? You getting big checks?
We are making fractions of pennies, and it is terrible.
You don't have to walk away from any other platform, because you know this community is going to take a little while to build. But just come over, enjoy the experience, get monetized right away with crypto, create your wallet, build a community, the community around you. There's going to be an aspect of Artbit which it's going to be a bit like Waze. Say you're in Austin. It's going to be, you know, virtual performances on the street. You could go play your guitar. You could be a busker. You could do whatever you want. And then that community, say you're in a hotel and you're a content provider. Instead of putting it up on your Instagram stories, put it up on Artbit. See how much money you can make on crypto based on the content you provide and the brand affiliation, if you will. So both parties will be able to make the money, and everyone will know what's allowed to be provided on that content through the smart contract.
And there's not going to be one blockchain to rule them all, right? I
No.
mean,
But stay on the platform, and you know, who knows? You know, there's going to be other equity sharing. I wouldn't say equity because it's coins, but it's going to be a piece of artists that say you could go on there. You could say, hey, check out my song. I'm willing to give away 20% of this. The token value of that is such and such. This isn't pledged music, but at the end of the day, you're going to have, the community will have interest in that particular artist to keep that pushing through. Virtual managers, if you will, virtual agents to be able to excel that artist, you know, art, dance, busking, the list goes on and on. So yeah, come to Artbit.
Sounds great, thank you.
Anyone? Sorry, the light's very bright.
Yeah, can everyone, you guys all are on a blockchain project, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can each one of your projects synchronize with the other? I don't know that much, but I mean, I'm still diving deep into this stuff. I see it as the future, but it seems like each person has a platform, which is great, but is it all synchronized?
I would like to think that all of these platforms can be synchronized. So you make a movie, I want to now have it be a VR experience. I can go into it, I can go shopping through it. I'm using another blockchain in order to buy something. There's a piece of music playing in the background. It's something from Artbit. I want to hear it. I'm paying for that. I'm bringing that back out into the real world. I'm then sharing it with you. I launch over, an avatar to you. You're then putting it in your game, and then someone is making money off of that game, and they're putting it in their, crypto bank. And you would hope that they're all quite symbiotic.
Thank you for that. My response is all of that, and for me, would be better if it was botany and hydrology, each one of those tasks, synchronized with all of your guys' things too, but each thing that everyone's doing would be botany and hydrology, something related to plants, related to water, and I feel like that's what blockchain's supposed to do.
All right.
I think it is fluid, so I'll go there. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about interchain communication, and I actually have a good short explanation. If you come up afterwards, I'll send you the link.
Please and
so
thank
someone
you.
with Block One development team just posted it. Yeah.
I like an aspect. Some friends of mine are in this band called Metallica, and I like to call them my friends because I toured with them a few times. But every city they go to, they give money back to the food bank, and I love that. And we know from research that the millennials want to be involved with companies that give back. They want to give back. They want to be. It's a feel-good thing when they buy a product and they give back. I want to have an element in Artbit where when you're in that community and you perform in that community, you'll have the opportunity to pay crypto to the local charities of your choice, and that can all be transferred through crypto.
Let's have one last question.
A food bank or whatever it is you feel like donating to
Sorry,
as you're
Matt.
performing there.
Yeah, I think the monetization aspect of blockchain is for the greater good. My best friend runs an amazing company called BlocSide, football on the blockchain, and there's several different fees when you're transferring players to different teams in soccer. That cuts down their salary, that cuts down X to this, X to that. There's less money for the player who's supporting X people. The decentralization of these transfer fees and other monetization aspects do good for everyone.
That's a whole other panel when it comes to philanthropy, because I'm very involved in that, and we know how corrupt that system is, and we none of us have any real idea where that money goes in a lot of these big NGOs and nonprofits. And the thing about the blockchain is all that can be transparent, and everyone can see where their donations are going and get direct source. That would be beautiful. I love that. There's another project that I was working on for 2 years that's at Harvard right now called We Do, and it has to do with giving back in the community. It's got a gamification, and hopefully that will see the light of day in the next year. It's very interesting. You'll dig it.
All right, we got one last question that I can't see. All right.
Hey, thank you so much. That was fantastic. My question is, for example, when YouTube launched, it was seen as a savior for creative artists, right? So it was a way for artists to kind of get their creative stuff out there. But over time, as with any other business, as they grow big, you start seeing them as a monopoly. It could be for various reasons, not necessarily to kind of undermine the creative talent. Is there, do you feel there is a fear that with blockchain, there is a potential that that could happen? Now, there's so many new startups that are coming out there, and possibly one of them is going to, a few of them are going to kind of take over or become the biggest ones out there. What can we do to ensure that it does not become the next YouTube or Spotify? Or
I mean, you're asking a question about governance, really, and the community and how it keeps it democratized and open and non-monopolistic. I think the technology itself is disruptive in that way, and we already have some situations with some large tech companies that aren't getting really challenged on their monopoly. I think we just need to let it run its course a bit, but I would caution everybody to just be as educated as possible on the governance issues and get involved. You know, make your voice and your stake and your participation known in the communities that you care about.
Yeah, just education, teach people. There's this thing with people that have been in blockchain since like 2012 or 2011. Oh, I've been in blockchain for that long. Okay. But like, teach me something, right? I think teaching the community and getting, and I get a lot of pitches, but my pitches are now turning from entrepreneurs that used to pitch me equity startups are now all pitching me blockchain startups from top universities. So that tells me that education within universities is changing towards blockchain. If that continues, it'll defeat that monopoly.
I want to chime in a little bit here. So I think I just want to make a point that scale is not always bad. So I heard that YouTube made $22 billion in revenue last year. But how much of that actually went to YouTube creators or the people who actually produce all the content, without which YouTube would be actually worthless? So it's really a question of who gets to benefit from that scale. That's what we can do a lot differently now, right? If you had that $22 billion business ecosystem that was much more participatory in terms of who actually financially benefits from that versus a small amount of elite shareholders and employees and early investors. So that's really what this is about.
The number is actually 1 million views. The content provider, if they're sponsored and brands and commercials, gets $1,000 for 1 million views.
So the thing people can do is take a look at some of the projects like Big Token, where they're letting users monetize their own data, and start looking at those models more, because I think right now there's going to be a huge war over user identity, and that will absolutely affect the entertainment industry as well. We have global products, and we need to sort of come up with a global consensus on this, or we're going to be able, again, not to have a totally open blockchain, but it's going to be having to incorporate borders.
You going to speak, Andrew? Because I'm going to wrap it up if you're not.
Well, in the music realm, you see artists that are always been featured, like Bjork announced her album that you can purchase through blockchain and cryptocurrency and fan involvement and coins for the audience. And so I look at people like that as the future and the way they think. And I'm glad I fell into this space, and I'm glad we're all talking about this, because 5 years from now, hopefully we could be talking about it like when the labels forgot to take Napster serious, and things have changed, and there's a new model, and artists are able to, from the beginning, be able to at least stay in art, be able to be an artist and make a living, and not have to go and do another job because they can't afford to live. Because, in my opinion,
everybody has to afford to live.
In my opinion, art is what makes this world beautiful. Music, the creative process, innovation, and all those things together create a beautiful world. So hopefully this will change. The conversation will change in a few years.
Yeah, I think the whole time, same with artists, vloggers, right? They're now dropping out of high school and dropping out of college to make careers of doing this, but the actual payment plan, the amount that they can make off these videos isn't enough to survive, but maybe it should be a career. According to how many hours kids watch of Jake Paul, it should be a career, but the entire process is going to be put on the blockchain. One of the bigger aspects is editing your videos. That has to be put on the blockchain. That's a disaster right now. So that entire funnel will be fixed. I agree with Matt on the artist side too. Yeah.
Let's give our panelists a round of applause.